Whew, there we go. Hi there. How are you?
Hi. All
How's it
right.
going,
How are
Mark?
you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing very well.
Hi there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So here we are on firing line with Kian, not Keith, and
Yeah.
special guest star Marco Cian.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, okay. I need my pen and I need to lean to the right as I draw out. It's like, now I should like to begin with the yeah. Okay. I
No,
don't
no, it's very
think
fun.
most people will actually get that reference, but yeah. Okay. Um,
Yeah. So this is to me this is super exciting and super like I don't exciting sounds like a weird term. It's super nice because like I like
yeah.
talking with creative and interesting people. That's always been a thing. In college, I I did I did like audio engineering and journalism for college, and so like I did a we I went to a couple of
Okay.
cons and I got to talk to like cosplayers and stuff like that. And so like this is super fascinating to me because I like talking to
Huh.
creative people because creative people are well like they're interesting in their ways, and you have a book out, correct, Marco?
Yes, I do. I have successfully published a book. I'm a published author. Now the hard part begins. Yeah.
And so that was actually
Yes.
that's actually another thing that I would like to talk about because like um it doesn't like from what I've read from conversations it was it hard was is it a difficult kind of thing getting a book published, or is the publishing easy, is it the getting recognition the hard part?
I would say that getting published has become harder in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that because of that, um, getting recognized is, I would say that getting recognized is harder than getting published. But the reason for this is because of the factors that have led to getting published becoming harder, if that makes any sense at all.
I get where you're coming from, and your book, and what is your book called
Yeah.
again?
My book is called The Song of Morian, Mercy and Monsters. It is the first of hopefully three books, which was not intentional. I did not set out to write a trilogy. It was just I wrote one big book, and then um, when I started sending it out to publishers, I found out that it was too long to be sent as a single book
Mm-hmm.
because I had never been published before, and so publishers were not willing to risk um, a book this long on a complete newcomer. And so what I had to do was chop the book up into bits and then fatten those bits up because the bits themselves were not long enough. And so what you see now before you, if you have a copy, I can get a copy, but we're not video recording
No,
for
yeah,
the
no.
YouTube videos. So
No,
yeah.
that's good. Yeah, no,
Um,
there'll probably be a picture. I'll post like this, and then there's gonna be
yeah.
a link. So you know.
Okay. So okay, yes, for which I'm very thankful. Thank you. Yeah, so what you see before you is basically the first part
Hmm.
with some a B plot to fatten it up. And if I can sell enough of this book, then I will be able to get the second bit out, which has also been fattened up. It's already on my Microsoft Word and ready to go, ready to be sent off. I just now have to publicize this book, which is a bit difficult given the current viral situation.
Yeah, I was gonna say like
Yeah.
because like when you said you published a book, and then like I follow Lindsay Ellis, who's also an author, and like she does video essays too, but she was talking about how like the pandemic like really was ruined ruined like any kind of thing she had going on. I can only imagine someone who is a new author that had their book come out, and it's just kind of like, ah, the world might be ending, but like this book's pretty good. So I feel like that. So that has been hard for you, has it then? Like,
Yeah.
it seems like it would be like, it's like, oh no, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, the audio is cutting out a bit, so
Oh, I'm sorry
I
about
didn't
that.
get all of that. But basically, the whole virus making things, no, it's fine. The virus making things difficult. Yes, it has, because what you would typically do in this situation is go to local bookshops or local events, do things like meet and greets, signings, get your local town or community to buy the book.
Hmm.
But given the fact that such things are, not really feasible when everyone has to social distance and wear masks and whatnot. Um, yeah, that isn't really an option anymore. So I'm trying to find ways to promote myself online.
Hmm.
But that's a bit difficult for the simple fact that there are so many content creators of so many different types of content on the internet.
Yeah.
You're not going to instantly reach super eye patch wolf levels of subscribers
No.
within the first month or so. Um, so yeah, I'm finding I'm getting through this. I'm gonna get the second bit published. By
Hey,
gum,
hey,
I'm
man,
gonna.
like the fact that you got your book published is like a lot more than what a lot of people can say, and I think that should always be like a big W for you, a big win for you, is that like you got this published. And like, so you did multiple publishers then. Is there not trick's not the good word. Is there like, so how did you end up landing on the publisher you got? Was it trial and error kind of thing, or was it?
Yes. So, to help get my book ready for publication, because I had the book, but I didn't really know where to begin in terms of sending it out to publishers and whatnot. But in my town, there's this woman named Kathy Giorgio at the All Writers Workshop. She's really cool. Check her out and stuff. And she helped me find out, publishers that would be willing to accept it. I think honestly, the reason that the publisher which accepted me, which is Rogue Phoenix Press, they've been good to me. So, just shout out to them. I think the reason that they accepted me is honestly because Kathy sent me,
Mm-hmm.
because she had sent them um, a lot of moneymakers, as it were. Like several of the authors who bring in um, a lot of good profit for Rogue Phoenix Press were sent to Rogue Phoenix Press by Kathy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the fact that Kathy sent me, that was a mark of um, quality, I guess,
Well, yeah,
that made them go, "Oh, yeah, we can trust this guy."
mm-hmm. Yeah, that seems like it. I mean, like she seems to pick pretty good ones. So how did you end up getting into writing? I feel like everyone has like a different kind of like story on how they got into writing, or they just started writing fan
So,
fiction. It's like one of the two. That's how I know.
I mean, I was always creative
Hmm.
when I was very very small. I started making my own comic books because of the Captain Underpants books. You know, that's not exactly high literature, but Dave Pilkey, in all his books, there is this very real sense of you too, young child, can make your own stuff. And Dave Pilkey is someone who is more than willing to show his early works, like the stuff that he made when he was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was when I saw that he had been making comics when he was a kid that I tried making comics on my own. Um, so initially, I wanted to make comic books or cartoons or whatnot. Um, the reason, I think there were multiple reasons why I shifted from comics to novel writing, but I would say the main two were that in middle school, my arts teacher was one of those teachers who was like, "Oh, cartoons and comics, that's not real proper art. I want you to be working on painting and
Oh man.
stuff like that." And if I had been in that situation now, I would have taken the lessons from painting and quote unquote proper art to make myself a better cartoonist. But
Mm-hmm.
as a kid, I just sort of
You
was
dropped
like,
off.
well, gee, yeah, I dropped off. And the second factor was a conversation that I had with my dad. So my dad had just finished reading this book, The Dresden Files. I can't remember the name of the exact book,
I love the
but I
Dresden Files.
remember, yeah, it's great. But he's so excited because he loved this book and he's telling us what happened to it. And as he's telling it, I'm like, oh, do they do this? Does this happen? And every single time I get it right. The thing that I think is going to happen is what ends up happening. And then finally my dad just exclaims, like, how are you predicting all this? Did you read it? And I said, no, that's just what I would do if I was writing it. And I think that was the moment that it clicked with me that, well, maybe I could be a writer. And the thing about writing is that you don't need pencils and paper and ink and markers or coloring and what. You don't need any real equipment other than a keyboard or even just a pencil and notebook paper.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the skill comes from just being able to express yourself. And so, even though I still like to draw, I drew the picture that is serving as a thumbnail here. I didn't, how do I put it? By the time I started to get back into drawing, everyone was already investing in tablets and drawing programs and all this high-tech stuff.
The newer kind of things comparatively to regular
Yes, the
like
newer,
sketch pads and stuff.
yeah, yeah, the newer kind of stuff. And I just felt like, what's the word? I just kept thinking to myself, it's so much easier to express kind of things that I want to make with just words because I've fostered that skill for all these years. Now that I'm going back to drawing skill, it just doesn't seem worth it.
Okay.
So I still like to draw, but writing is now my main mode of telling a story because that is what I feel most comfortable and most skilled and most confident with.
No, that's actually really really cool. I think that is a really fascinating take on that because it sounded like you started out as an wanting to be more artistic and then it just so happened you found your calling and you grew out of it, but you still do you draw. It's not like you do it like it you're an artist with your words. I think what I'm trying to say. And so, like, with
Oh,
that in
well,
mind,
thank
though,
you.
yeah, no, I really did enjoy your book. It's been like a couple of months, but like I had a lot of fun with it. But like with that in mind, though, do you ever think like maybe you wouldn't draw a comic book, but like you could write maybe like an outline or a script for a comic book sometime? This this is just an out of a blue question because like you brought it up that you wanted to write comics, and I think
Yeah.
I think
I would very much. Oh,
I think a lot of
go on.
your story ideas, like I like it because like I think I've had this conversation with you about like I feel like you have just the right amount of description in your story where it's not like too little or too much. It's just there it is. It's like I can shape it a little bit, but like it's there too at the same time. So like I think you have that kind of idea where like, if you were to write like a comic script, it could work out well. Sorry.
It's funny you should say that because the only book that I've ever read on how to write was the Peter David Writing for Comic Books
Oh, sweet.
book that I got. Yeah, that I got in middle school around the same time that I was getting off the art wagon and into writing. And the main criticism that all my early writing received was that it read like a comic book. It's like,
Mm,
this reads too much like a comic book. You're not utilizing what you can do with a novel. It's almost exclusively dialogue, very brief snippets of action.
mm,
You should be more novel-like, as it were. Um, and so, yeah, I would very much love to write comic books in the future, if possible. The main non-book medium that I would love to write for, honestly, is radio. I really love radio dramas.
oh, dude, they're so
Um,
awesome. Like
yeah,
straight up, I like BBC radio dramas are like one of my favorite things to
yeah,
listen to on my runs and stuff.
yeah. But it's like the last. I mean, we've still got NPR dramas occasionally, um, but it's nothing like the level of BBC or whatnot.
I
So
I
yeah,
kind
I
of
just
feel
I
like it is coming back though. And I say that because I just downloaded The Sandman off of Audible. Like we're not sponsored, but I'm just saying like I
yes,
downloaded The Sandman off of Audible,
yeah,
and that like I am like I'm like 20 minutes into that. It's a 10-hour long thing. It is super just it's fascinating. It is. I think like
yeah,
that we might be heading into like a renaissance of kind of that kind of stuff because like I I I think that like these kind of things are really really interesting, and that's super cool though. Like I haven't met anyone else that has been like, you know what, audio dramas. That's what I would like to write because I'm like
yeah,
that to me is like what like it's so unique to me because it's like how do you because there's a weird balance, right? Like dialogue, sound effects, narration, and it's all there, and
mm,
like so like there has to be like you can't have too much of one or it just kind of throws it off. Sorry, I'm a weird nerd when it comes to like
yeah.
audio dramas.
I mean, I think something that I learned from the Adventures of Superman radio is that it's a good way of conveying stuff um, in the audio drama format is to have someone to talk to, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Olsen was created specifically so that Clark Kent could have someone to just talk to,
Yeah.
for the radio drama. And yeah, I think the main reason that audio dramas and radio dramas, as it were, are becoming more popular is because of the internet.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to draw the ire of your audience, but I've never listened to a single episode of Night Vale. I know of it, but I haven't listened to it. But I know that's a podcast. So
Yeah.
it's online. You don't have to tune in to the CBS radio station every. I think it was every night or whatever.
Yeah, wasn't it like 6 p.m.
To
or something like that? It was because it was
yeah, it
like
was
prime. It
something
was
like
prime time hours. It would be what we like our
yeah,
TV prime time would be, sitting by like
yeah,
in your study just with your family, like, oh, Superman, that's right, beat up the Ku Klux Klan, and I'm like, yeah.
yeah,
No, I totally
yes,
understand.
yeah,
And
yeah.
people listen to podcasts. I think that's the reason why I have strong beliefs that audio dramas can like flourish, because like they're like, Rooster Teeth, as much as like it's become like its bastardized own form of what it is now, they have a podcast where it's called like Welcome to Hell, and it's a podcast genuinely about these
Oh,
two characters. They're in hell, and they meet up with other people in hell and they talk about them. And I think there's like a dungeon, not a Dungeons and Dragons, but it's like a podcast. I'll have to link it, but like it's a podcast where a guy gets sent to a mythical realm, and his two co-hosts are like a wizard and like an ogre, and they talk with other like fantasy creatures. Like those are essentially like
okay.
freeform audio dramas. So like I can totally see it coming back. So with that in mind, like, so when you know you were gonna write like a fantasy genre book right away, or is there other like genres that you like dabble with when you're writing? I guess that's a
Well, this novel in particular, yes, I knew right from the beginning that I wanted to write a fantasy novel. The story of how it came about is actually kind of funny, because sometime in high school, shoot, I can't remember his name, but I remember there was this author who was at some award ceremony, I believe, and um, he said, "You know what? I'm tired of getting into these fights about could there be black hobbits, or could black people exist in Middle Earth or whatnot. Africa is an entire continent with its own mythologies and fantasies and stuff you can make with that. So, I'm going to go there to make my own fantasies." And I remember thinking, good on him, but also just genuinely considering, well, how would you get a black African protagonist in the standard medieval European fantasy setting?
that
It'll
making it
work.
sound like weird, or like I don't.
Um,
I know that's hard. Is that hard? Then that's always been my question, because like I don't. Game of Thrones is a show that like it's weird to like throw out, but like they had African American characters just in like a medieval setting. Or am I wrong? Am I wrong that Westeros didn't have any African American people? I could be wrong. I could be just being hyperbolic.
I think. Well, I think there was a a pirate guy
Okay.
who was. I haven't seen. I've seen like the occasional episode of season 2 and season 3,
Monster. I'm
and
kidding.
that's
I'm
it.
totally kidding.
I know. I'm a bad fantasy author for not
No. Oh gosh. No.
uh,
I don't. Just,
studying Martin. No, I'm yeah. It's fine.
I feel like maybe
Um,
like the best fantasy authors like don't watch other people's stuff. Like I feel like
right.
there's the occasional like fear of like uh accidentally aping someone's writing, and so like I feel like I don't know, I've always been a weirdo about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I know that the entire sword and soul genre is dedicated to African-based fantasy.
Oh, that's cool.
There's Charles R. Saunders, who wrote Imaro. I've read the first Imaro book and some of his other stuff, and he's very good. Um, and if you go onto his blog and website, you can find other authors because he effectively started the entire sword and soul genre. And I love his approach to the thing that inspired the sword and soul genre, because he grew up reading Edgar Rice Burroughs, Robert E. Howard, H.P. Lovecraft, the sorts of weird pulp fiction-y authors that science fiction and fantasy fans were supposed to be reading
Oh yeah,
at the time. And the thing about those authors is that there are some pretty racist elements
oh,
in their stories.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, that H.P.
Rather
Lovecraft
than
boy.
yeah. But Saunders' idea, I remember him stating in interviews and stuff, he's like, I do love these stories. And so what I wanted to do was take the elements that I loved and take away the racist elements as best I could and make something new with the elements that I did love. And that's, I think, a really admirable way to approach writing. Yeah.
Yeah, man, 100%. I I have that. I don't know. It's weird, and like I know this. Like I'm Asian American. Obviously, people can't see that. Also, my picture's a duck, so like I'm Asian American. So like that's always been like always kind of a fascinating thing when people are able to like do something like that. That's I think that's the reason why I latched on to both The Legend of Korra and Avatar a lot. When at for what it is that like it's a high fantasy book, it's a high fantasy series that isn't your typical like sword and sorcery kind of series that like we've seen. So like I find when breaking.
Oh,
Go on, like go on.
is it Aliette de Baudard? Sorry, it's French, so I'm probably mangling the pronunciation. But let me. It should be. Yes, Aliette de Baudard. I'm sorry, Aliette. I'm probably mangling your name. But she's yeah. So she's a French American fantasy author, and she's half Vietnamese. And she draws a lot from Vietnamese and other Southeast Asian stuff for her works. I haven't read her yet, I'm afraid, but she's
No,
been in my radar
oh, that's
for a
awesome.
long
See, but
time.
that is super awesome though. Like, uh, so your inspiration came from the fact that like in general, there aren't a lot of like people of color in like high fantasy. Sorry, I feel, is that how we started this conversation with you? Kind of, or am
Yeah.
I going? Okay.
So it was basically, so when I started out, I didn't feel very comfortable with the idea of writing an African protagonist in an African fantasy setting, because I simply was not familiar with much African fantasy at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like Charles R. Saunders and all these other writers that I've mentioned, I found out about them as I was researching, as I
Mm-hmm.
was writing this novel. So I did feel comfortable putting Morian, the protagonist, into a medieval European setting because I've read so many medieval European fantasy works. I am much more familiar with the history of Europe and
Uh-huh.
of Africa. And um, it felt something that I was more comfortable with doing at the time. Now that I have learned how to research, how to find sources, and whatnot, I'm actually very eager to explore West Africa, like the Mandinka, because like figures such as Sundata Keita, or Ouagadougou, the story of the serpent. There's a film, Sia, The Dream of the Python, which is really good, and it's based on the famous myth of Ouagadougou um, and the serpent. And you know, there's an entire film industry of griots, the
Wow.
West African bards, because these griot families, mostly the Kouyaté family, um, have decided to preserve the old stories through film, because that's a way to get the visual and musical aspect of the stories recorded so that they can be distributed and whatnot. And it's so cool. There is this entire world of myth and legend outside of Europe that I would love to explore. Um, sorry.
That's
And
that.
now that
Sorry.
oh, go on.
That
No, go
is
on.
isn't that the crazy thing though? Like when like I don't know because like I think about like what we're taught in American schools is just literally like our Greek we. I remember in middle school we had just Greek. We had it was mythology, but it was just you might as well just been like man, it's just Greek mythology, and that's like all we ever learned. So like all all anything my friends
Yeah.
knew about mythology was like oh there's like Zeus and stuff, and then like I was reading like the Journey to the West and stuff like that, and they're like, oh, that's not that's
Yeah.
like lame myths. I'm like, but like this dude has like a cool staff, and there's like a dragon, like that's some cool stuff. And so like yeah, we
No,
really just
that's
taught
exactly it. That's
European stuff, a lot of just
go on.
European, and like you know, because like even in America, like it's very fascinating that like we really go off, we really like there's a lot of Native American myths that are like extremely fascinating. Like I think that have been way more fascinating to me than like you know the gods like the legend of the Thunderbird and the Wendigo like and it's so weird because like that should be ingrained more into our culture. You know what I mean? From a standpoint of like this is America, but like it's just we learn a lot more just about like things like a lot of European stuff, and so I think that I wouldn't say stunts our growth when it comes to like understanding other cultures, but it kind of just like domes it into like this one thing. Sorry. That's how I
No, it's
feel.
fine. That's I think that is something because how do I put it? I mean, stories of epic heroes are hard to come by outside of European sources. Like you mentioned the Native American myths, but all the Native American stories and legends that I heard when I was a kid were what's the word? They weren't about epic heroes like King Arthur or Orlando or whatnot. They were just simple stories like this is the story of how a possum stole Yellow Woman's keys and took fire from the sun and
Yeah, they're
whatnot.
more
And that is
they're just more like just stories to tell around the fire of like so you can learn a lesson where I feel like you are very right. There is a lot of great heroes. If
yes.
there's only if the only like non-European hero that I can like think of right away is like Gilgamesh. I suppose is is
Hmm.
Mesopotamian European or is that it's not, is it? Am I don't
It's
know.
not European. I mean, yeah. Well, I mentioned 'cause, if I remember correctly, you're Filipino American.
I am, yes.
Yes. Well, I mentioned Bernardo Carpio
Hmm.
in my Mauryan book, and the Montalban Mountains. Um, you know that's an actual mountain range in the Philippines.
Hmm.
Um, and Bernardo Carpio is an actual Filipino hero who is named after the Spanish hero Bernardo del Carpio.
Hmm.
Um, so, yeah,
So wait,
I mean,
was this book more research than you expected it to be then? Like, just in general? Because, like, from the way it sounds, you did your research on writing, and finding out your writing process is super fascinating. I always love finding out other people's like process when they're being creative. It to me it fascinates me and weirdly drives me to keep evolving and moving forward.
Well, so did I expect it to be as well researched as it was? It's funny that you should say that it is well researched because I would usually get um these stories and myths and stuff from singular sources.
No, it's fine.
And like my you know my college education has made me think, oh my god, I should get a second source to confirm this with. But um, I think I myself am not black. I'm pasty mayonnaise white, and so I sort of knew from the beginning that um, if I was writing with a non-white protagonist, then some people would just naturally be wary, like just slightly on guard, because there are authors like Edgar Rice Burroughs and Robert E. Howard and whatnot. So I knew that I would have to do my research to do well. I think my ideals, like the pieces of media that I aspired towards, were works like Moana and Avatar: The Last Airbender, where it is very clearly well researched. Even though both of those works were the main creative directors were two white guys. They are both incredibly popular and beloved, and so I thought that's what I have to work towards. I have to work towards getting to that level. So I yeah, I don't think I expected my bibliography to be that long. There's a bibliography at the end of the book, for those unaware. But yeah, I didn't expect it to be that long, but I wanted it to be, I wanted to show where I had gotten all my information from in case I got something wrong. Because I think the way I saw it was that either I get it right, I like Sunjata Keita. Either I do a good job in representing Sunjata Keita, in which case people who would not have been familiar with him otherwise will learn about Sunjata Keita, or I don't do a good job, and then I guess internet commenters chew me out over it. It's like, my God, how could you get it all wrong? This is how you should have done it. In which case, people who would not otherwise have known about Sunjata Keita would still learn about Sunjata Keita and whatnot. So I wanted to get it right, but even if I got it wrong, I thought that it would be worth attempting, if that makes any sense.
No, that's super. That like hearing you say that is super awesome that you did take a lot of this into consideration. I think that I would say from my perspective of things, I see a lot of people don't take that consideration into it, and like most of the time, like because your book isn't pandering. I guess you know what I mean when I say like your book isn't just like, hey guys, this is a person of color as my main character book. I mean, it doesn't have that pandering feeling. So I have that as like what you did is, like you said, you took your time and you did your research, and admitting that like if you did it wrong, you would like to know about it from like people who read the book. I think that's super awesome because like not many people would put a bibliography in their fantasy novel book at the end, be like, these are all my references. But like the fact that you did that shows that like you do take your time and you care about what you're writing. I think that that's awesome. And I don't know if there's any other. I guess I've never had another person have a bibliography of like books they researched for their book before. So like I think that's cool. That's something different to me. To me. To me. The your cover art. Sorry, no, go on. No. I want to hear your thing.
Well, I put in the bibliography because of George MacDonald Fraser.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably don't know him, but he's an author. He's most famous for the Flashman Papers series. But I read a book by him called The Pirates, which is wonderful. It's absolutely amazing. And when I got to the end, there was a bibliography, and Fraser explicitly says, you know, I wrote this book because of these films, these books. And here are also the films and books that I used to research the real life Pirates of the Caribbean time period. And so I just thought, wow, what a novel concept, putting in the bibliography at the end of a novel. And I also know that
That is
Jane
aggressively
Gaskell,
novel concept.
the edition of her books that I have read doesn't have the bibliography, but the very first edition, she put in a bibliography for her Atlan series, which I'm on again, off again reading. It's very dark.
Okay, I'll have to check it out. I like I reading is such a cathartic thing for me. Like, to be honest with you, it is my shutdown mode for after I'm done like writing or like editing something. It's just if I read a book because like because you also do video content as well, correct?
Yes.
So like
Yeah.
I don't know if you have this, but like I will spend hours on just one thing, on like one movie, like because like I want to just like if I'm like I did this with the last Airbender film, and I've told people that story of like I watched it like I have not watched it in 10 years, and I watched it 6 times in a row after the 10 years, and I'm like
Wow.
I need my mind. I was like
Yeah.
I was just like reading books is like my shut off of like once because like I feel like my mind is always consumed with like media that I'm doing. I need to like find an opposite of it, and so like reading something just helps me just like, whew, it's gone. I'm done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I love
No,
people's
yeah,
book explanations. Like they're like, you should read this book. I'm
yeah.
like, I'm definitely putting that on my list. Like my friends do this to me all the
Yeah.
time, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna read these
Uh,
books.
this summer, I went through every single Discworld novel on audiobook,
I
like back to back.
That's so
There
awesome.
was the occasional break, um, but yeah, and it just, once I was done, I actually felt kind of empty because it took me months, to get through the audiobooks, even when I'm like listening to like at least 5 hours of the audiobook at work every day. It still took a while to get through all of
Yeah,
them.
it's a lot. Yeah.
And it was just, yeah, I I painted entire buildings, you know, to those books. Uh
with
yeah.
with your like with your like, cause like now I know your video, cause I'm almost gonna link your video, your YouTube channel down there, cause like I really have liked all your videos. Like, I really like your Joy Luck Club analysis. It is one of my, it's like, to me it's one of my, it's one of the, it was like the first thing I like watched of yours, cause like you posted something, I clicked on the link and I was like, he did something on the Joy Luck Club. I'm gonna watch this, and it cause
Yes.
I, I was gonna write something about it, and then I watched yours. I'm like, I don't have to write anything about the Joy Luck Club. Like I was like, I was
Oh,
like for me, and it was like a for me thing. I was just like, this guy, this guy is really like, it's again with your research. You're a very thorough human being. I am just going to say that when I read anything you do, you're a very thorough,
thank you.
and like it's one of my like your newest one, your Superman video was really just very interesting, and you you know, 'cause you brought up radio dramas earlier, and it's like, man, you really just you know your stuff, and like that to me is like one of my favorite things when about your videos is that like you're very passionate about like a topic you pick. It doesn't feel like it's just like cherry picked out of a hat. It's just like this is what I like, and it's like not of the norm, and that's another reason why I think it's super interesting, because like you did Bloodsport, and I'm just
Oh,
like, man, this guy
yes.
just I like this guy because he just picks random stuff, and like that speaks to me instead of being like, this is the anime that I watched from this year, and I'm like, that is how did you get into video essay writing, I guess, or like video analysis, like analysis and criticism?
Okay, so um, when I signed on with Rogue Phoenix Press, they were very upfront and they said, look, thanks to the current publishing market, you're going to have to self-advertise. They were very upfront about it. And so they said, find some internet presence, make some sort of internet footprint, as it were. Something that when people hear your name and want to find out more about you, they can find a website or a YouTube channel or a blog or something. And so I started out with a blog. And it was just a regular blog. I wrote 2 articles about fantasy because I thought, I'm a fantasy author. I should write blog entries about fantasy. But then I watched the Joy Luck Club movie, and I read the book, and I had been familiar with Asian American media and discourse and yada yada yada. People like Frank Chin or David Henry Wong or whatnot for many years. So the Joy Luck Club has always had that shadow, I guess.
Yeah, no,
It's
I get
been.
you.
Yeah. So I had known it by reputation, but whenever I heard about Joy Luck Club, it was always in the whole Amy Tan is a shameless race trader whore, and
She's
she's
not.
selling out. She's selling out the Asian man. She's trying to emasculate us, and
She's not. Like,
whatnot.
I think that's the one thing that like I love Amy Tan's books, because like I, coming from I'm technically second generation, so like what Amy Tan wrote about is second generations dealing with first generation's problems, and I'm like, oh man,
Yeah.
these are highly accurate. And so that when you said like there was discourse because of this book, I'm like, oh, I know. I like if you second generation
Yeah.
Asian people would be like, man, this book is super accurate. The Amy Tan understands. First generation Asian people are like, she's awful. She's making us look like we're awful people. And it's like, well, I mean, like, kind of, maybe
Well,
not
Frank
awful,
Chin
but like,
is, goodness me, he's He's not first generation. I think he's probably like fifth generation or something. If I remember correctly, he's a descendant of the original, very first Chinese immigrants to California.
Yeah.
Um, and that's, a lot of his writing deals with the fact is like, you know what, we are just as much American as anyone else. It's our blood and sweat and tears that built the Transcontinental Railroad, that mined the mines, that ranched the livestock and whatnot. We belong here. And that, I suppose, unapologetic masculinity, like, for some reason Kanye West popped into my head, but yeah, the whole like, I refuse to be emasculated. I refuse to be viewed in the stereotypes of like small penises, not no body hair, all that other
Oh man,
stuff.
100%. That was like, and like, it's not like it's not a weird race thing. It just comes to it comes to the like the fact that like I think I had this conversation with you. We were talking about like I'm really glad Hollywood has had a lot of strides during this whole, after Crazy Rich Asians and stuff like that. But like it was
Yeah.
it kind of still like weirdly hit home after watching the TV show Master of None, where Aziz Ansari is like, yeah, they wanted me to like just sound more brown, and I'm like, how do I do that, because like all I've ever known is American
Yeah.
culture. So like what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
And that's so like, and that has always been something aggressively fascinating to me, is that like I honestly I didn't realize it was like a different color to like maybe elementary school. Like maybe like middle school hit, and then someone called me the N word, and I was like, I don't even know what that means, and I had to ask my dad, and they're like, son,
Yeah.
we need to talk to your principal, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
I don't understand. So like, no, that's crazy though. Like your research, and I think that's like my favorite, like that's my favorite thing about your videos, is that like every time, like this sounds bad, like, and it's not that I'm like competition, it's just like every time I see you post something and I like watch it, I'm just like, he's way good, and I'm like I'm not good. I was like I'm not good. I need to like, I was like
I mean,
Marco's research, I need to be like, and it's not like like, again, I'm really sorry, it's not competition wise, it's kind of just like I like to have people that I can like watch their stuff and be like, oh, that's really really, like, you know what I mean, it's like, oh, they're really really good at writing, and like, it's like, wow, like I need to probably push myself a little bit more. And I think that's like the best part of having like knowing other creative people, cuz like it just pushes you to like try to be better. And sorry, that was weird.
thank you. Yeah, I
That's such a
mean,
weird humble brag, and I'm sorry.
I feel
It's
everything
just like,
that you. Oh, it's fine. I mean, I feel that whole inferiority complex when I watch one of Super Eyepatch Wolf's videos. Like, when I saw his Shenmue video, or the Outlaw Star video, I just thought, I'm never gonna be that good, ever. um,
with like
and
Eye Patch Wolf, and like I used to have that with Eye Patch Wolf, but I think it was after the Trash Taste podcast, where they bring up like why John was so different to other anime YouTubers. It kind of like made me realize that it's like he's really really good, but like he's had 5 years to like reach that pinnacle, and it's, you know what I mean, because he did Hunter x Hunter, he did his,
I thought he was. Oh yeah, it was 5 years.
it was like, yeah, it was like five
Yeah.
full years.
So yeah, there's.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
he's been doing this half a decade. I think that was like that's why I like realized
That
that,
makes
like,
that makes me feel better.
yeah, because like that was the reason, like it hit me, that is what hit me hard, because I was just like, he's been doing this for 5 years. There's no way like I like could reach a pinnacle like that like in 6 months because like he's grown into like why he's so good. And I think that's why like I no longer
Okay.
put him as, in a pedestal of like I'm never gonna be as good as him. That's why I love seeing I love when the creatives jet when I see someone else's video because it's just like I'm gonna watch this and I'm going to like learn from this. And that sounds like it's like I'm a psychopath. Like I'm just like I'm gonna learn from these guys and I'm
No,
gonna watch
that's
that video.
exactly what I do when I read now. I can't read like regular people anymore because now I'm constantly in that analytical state of, oh, you know, take this. This is a good passage. This is a good turn of phrase. All that stuff. To bring it back to your original question, so something important about that. So the reason that I decided to make Joy Luck Club into a video was because you know, one, I was just struck by how different the actual story was from the image that I was familiar with, and it is a very well constructed film and book. Also, something that I realized was that um, people don't tend to talk about media and works that deal with how, quote unquote, the West views, quote unquote, the East, or vice versa, or examining works that sort of show why those two distinctions aren't as distinct as we like to think. You know, people bring up Edward Said's Orientalism all the time. But when they do, especially on YouTube analysis videos, it's usually just saying, you know, this is Edward Said's Orientalism. This piece of media that I've just watched is an example of the Orientalism that he was talking about. Therefore, it is not good. You know, and they just
I hate
ended
I
at that.
literally hate that as a
Oh,
just as a thing. It was just kind of like there is a like Orientalism is always has always existed. It's just it doesn't make media bad. It just it the one thing that has always got me is that like there's always been like and I think maybe it's like the bad thing about me is that like I feel like I was like raised to be like, oh, there's always going to be Asian jokes, like I'm just going to have to deal with it when I see it, you know what I mean? Because like there's a How I Met Your Mother episode that like is like not good for like it's ridiculously racist, and but like everyone like shied over it and no one said anything about it because like Lily wasn't doing blackface, she was just pretending to be like she's pretending to be an Asian person. They're like, nah, that's fine. And it's just like, and then like when I first watched it as I was younger, I was like, yeah, that's not bad. And then like older, I'm just like, yeah, it's just gonna be a thing that happens. It and but like if we do stuff like that, we have to like, I feel like we have to do that with like when we make fun of Hicks then too in like media, because like is it seems like the same thing, isn't it? Just a bit like you know you have them like Cletus and things like that.
in what sense?
When we talked about the Orientalism, where like this is Orientalism, this is bad.
Yeah.
It's the same thing where it's like, well,
Oh,
should we put that view on all things? It's just like I feel like
yeah. So
reasonably,
like Little Abner isn't very accurate representation of the South. You
yeah,
know, it's very obviously a Yankees
yeah, exactly.
imaginings of
And I feel like I understand where people come with where they feel like you know, and it's understandable, but at the same time, I feel like we hit on like the problems that we should be hitting on aren't the problems we're hitting on. It's just we just want to. It's just a shotgun method where it's like if we can't hit the big problems, we'll hit the really small, minuscule problems, and maybe that'll change it. Because like I've been having that weird feeling.
Well, I don't think that Orientalism in media is necessarily a small problem. I do think that these subtle misrepresentations are very influential. But the thing that inspired me to do a full YouTube analysis channel was to analyze those subtle influences
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. You know, I mean, Fu Manchu. I think we can all agree that Fu Manchu is a very racist stereotype, and yet he is still easily Sax Rohmer is still very easily the most influential English language author on how, quote unquote, the West perceives China, Chinese people, Asian people in general, because of Fu Manchu. So, actually looking back and examining him, have you ever read the first Fu Manchu novel?
No, when you think when I think of Fu
It's
Manchu,
so
no, go on. I'll tell you what I
go
with the Fu
go.
Manchu.
Okay. Okay, so the thing is, the popular image that I have of Fu Manchu, and what I think most people have of Fu Manchu, is that Fu Manchu is basically the very first supervillain.
Yeah.
There are of course precursors, but he's like the first evil lair, stroking his mustache, plotting world domination. He's got a death ray, gadgets, and all this stuff. And so when I sat down to read the very first Fu Manchu novel, the so Dennis Nayland Smith, who's the hero, he like goes to Dr. Petrie, his friend, and he's like, "My God, Petrie, there's a fiendish Dr. Fu Manchu. He's got this horrible plan. The fate of the entire Anglo-Saxon race depends on my success." And he actually says that, like the fate of the entire Anglo-Saxon race. I'm like, oh boy, what evil plan has he got? And it's like, my evil plan is that I want the British out of Burma. Dun dun. And it's like the music's swelling,
So
and all the heroes like, my God, the fiend! How evil! How mad!
Oh
I'm
man,
like, that's it. That's it.
that is like the fear of like the fear of the East is like super high, and that's so crazy because like when you brought up Fu Manchu, the first thing I thought of was like that. Sadly enough, everyone Marvel comics from the '60s and like the Mandarin was the first thing I thought of when you're like Fu Manchu because like they're like he was heavily inspired by Fu Manchu, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know, you can tell, very just yeah, eccentric Asian man with rings,
And they
100%.
also had Yellow Claw. Oh, the Yellow Claw. Have you heard of the Yellow Claw?
No, but I'm only IDing with that name what that means.
He's from Jimmy Woo. Well, I think the comic was called the Yellow Claw, but it was in the 50s, so before the Mandarin. And the Yellow Claw was this yellow peril bad guy. But the reason that everyone remembers the series is because of the protagonist, who was Jimmy Woo, who was this dashing all-American boy, with I think it was the FBI or the CIA. They hadn't invented Shield yet, so like in later works, he's an agent of Shield, and he's Asian American, but he's just this G shucks all American guy, and he's
Oh,
going up against the dastardly Yellow Claw and his Nazi sidekick, and it's yeah.
Bug wild. Like, I when it comes to like, because when I see your media analysis, you like to like go into non-modern things and you like to like look at them now, right? Is that because that's what I feel like that what the Joy Luck Club video was, and even with like the Superman video was another one, and I really like that about your your writings and your video essays is because like it's like you're like opening up time capsules, I guess, and like looking at them. I like that kind of stuff. I think that's fascinating
Oh,
to
thank
me
you.
because like I said, it's not
Um,
like I was like rival. I was just like Marco's really good at writing. I need to like up my ante just a little bit, and
I,
because like
I mean, you're really good at making videos too.
I don't
Yeah.
think so. I don't.
Sorry.
Do you have it's so weird. It's weird to ask because I like to ask other creators. Do you either have like creators anxiety when the video is posted, or do you have like creators anxiety when it's happening? Because like I weirdly get creators anxiety once the video is posted because like I schedule mine, and so like once it's all done, I'll schedule it. And then like there's that 8 hours of wait before the video premieres. I'm just like, oh, it's gonna be awful. It's gonna suck. It's gonna be terrible. Do you ever have that? Because like I feel
Um,
like you're more you seem like a very confident human being, and like so.
I'm really not.
Oh, because you come
I
off
guess
very
it's
confident.
just no. I don't really have creators anxiety per se. Like where I think, oh my God, this video sucks when I post it. Um, because I know the thing that I post is the best thing that I could make at the time. I think my main source of anxiety is when I show my parents. Because my parents, of course, yes, my parents want to see the video before it gets posted on YouTube so that they can comment on it and give me tips and stuff. But the thing is, my parents aren't familiar with um, YouTube analysts like Lindsay Ellis or iPatch Wolf or whatever. So when they see my videos, they're comparing it to Ken Burns
Oh, like a
or
documentary.
other.
Oh shoot. Okay. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah. I get
yeah.
you.
So my main anxiety is when I'm like, geez, if it's bad enough comparing myself to iPatch Wolf, but to compare yourself to Ken Burns,
I
you
I
know.
I remember when I told my mom that I was doing it, and like she was going like she's like, I want to support you. I want to watch your video. My first video was on Food Wars, and so I'm a pile of garbage, and the thumbnail is one of the like hentai looking scenes of Food Wars. And I posted it, and like I was just like, because like the Mortal Kombat video I did got done. I was like, all right, I'll show her this, but like it accidentally showed the Food Wars one, and she's like, honey, I don't think this one's for me. I haven't opened it yet, but like I just need to know, are you like, are you talking about porn? I'm like, no, there's so much more going on to this, mom. Don't. I'm really sorry. And so like that was always my thing. Like my mom is like weirdly supportive, but she's like, that was my favorite line from her. She's like, honey, I just like, I want to support you, but like, I just don't think this is for me. I was like, oh, thanks. No, that's reasonable. I was like, that's reasonable. Like, I'm not gonna like, but she's watched all of them. She really liked the Jackie Chan one because like she really likes Jackie Chan, so she's like, yeah, that Jackie Chan one. I think that's your best. I'm like, I don't. I was like, I did another one recently that I think is like just waves above that, but okay, thanks, mom. But do you feel when you like every video is a little bit better, right? Do you think that when you post a new video?
Yes,
Because I feel like that every time I
very much
post a new
so.
video. Maybe it's not besides maybe
I
my last one. I don't think so. The last one was kind of just like I'm really working too hard on this other video. I need to like put something out real quick to like get my mind off of it. So my last one wasn't. The last one was like I literally like like it wasn't like aping what the Super iPod video series what I liked during the summer. It was just kind of like this is what I like during the pandemic, and I was like, this is the first and only time I'll ever like ape someone's style because I was like, I need to just get something. Do you have that fear?
Kian, the pandemic isn't over.
Shh. Then that means they can watch Riverdale, Marco. Okay. Do you ever fear like that? I think that's something I even asked a lot of people before. Is like, do you fear like not purposely but accidentally aping someone that you're really fond of style? Because like in I've admitted this in my Food Wars video. Definitely feels like I like it felt to me like I kind of like involuntarily like took like Super Eye Patch Wolf's and Fox Cade's writing style a little bit in a sense. And so like I'm always wary of that. So like when I'm working on something, I never watch like video essays. So like it really sucks when people have loot drops that are really really cool and I'm like I want to watch this, but I know I can't watch this right now because I'm writing something and it's like this won't help me. You know what I mean? Because like I always have that fear. My fear of like accidental plagiarism is a real thing that like I try to keep away from.
I'm not afraid of accidental plagiarism, honestly, because any creator is going to start out accidentally plagiarizing.
Right.
Like, I mean, my very first writings were basically just shittier versions of Douglas Adams.
Okay.
And then I think what you're watching, what you're reading now, the book that you know, The Song of Morian, I think that's the first thing I wrote where I finally found my own voice, my own style. And it's the first thing that I wrote that I can look back on after years and still be completely proud of. So yeah, in terms of video editing and video making, you know, the first two, well, not the first two, because the Joy Luck Club, you know, it's a loving thesis. That was very much a tribute to it's now Digine. She's now Digine. But she was the first analyst on YouTube that I ever came across. And I watched so many of her videos back in college.
Okay, so that was your first YouTube analyst. Sorry, that was another one I was gonna ask. Like, what was your first like YouTuber? Because like Eye Patch Wolf was mine. Like, the Nerdist posted his Cowboy Bebop one, and because I wasn't really big on YouTube at that time, I was listening. I was doing a lot, just watching TV. But like, yeah, no, Digine is your first one. That's cool. That's really cool. I always like to ask people that. Like, well, who's your first like video influence?
And then Bloodsport is awesome, and here's why. It was, you know, obviously from the title meant to be clickbaity. And it's like, people will click on it because it's like that iPad, or not iPad, that H-Bomber dude's video. You know, yeah. That H-Bomber fellow.
I feel like, but like, where that comes in mind, and I think I've talked about this to death with a lot of people, but like you can put like media, name of media, a genius, here's why, but like when you do stuff like that, you really need to like actually thoroughly do it. And I because like when H. Bomberguard did like the Sherlock is garbage, here's why, like you can tell like he has like a love and like he did his research on it. But like, you know, I don't know if you read that thread in the Discord chat. We were talking about like there's so many people who write that like garbage and like here's why is that like it's not good. And like yours is in the it's good because like, you know, it's again you analyzing media and like understanding it is very important when you write titles like that. Like, so like in general, like that's why I stick with the title like A Beautiful Mess, is because it's just like, I'm going to talk very negatively about this, but I'm also coming at this with like love at the same time. Cause like if you just say like this is garbage, like it always, like a lot of them always seem like they come off of just malice, and there's no like anything else besides like I want to be mad. You know what I mean? Like that's where like titling's important, and like you always have really good titles too. Like I thoroughly enjoy your titles.
You know, the thing is, the reason that I post on the 26th, well, two reasons. One is that most people post on either the last day or the first day of the month, and so 26th is, you know, a date. That is neither of those things. But the other
Yeah,
reason
it's
is
like
that
a week from now. I'm so pumped, Marco.
yeah,
Oh,
thanks. Well, this month's video is not going to be an analysis of anything. It's going to be something else. Something else.
super! I'm very excited. That makes
Just to tease you all.
super excited.
Expect the unexpected. Spock's brain. What was I saying? I was saying yes. Oh, the 26th is because my second video, the one after the Joylight Club, was going to be about James Clavell's Asian Saga. And the thing is, it was over an hour long, and it was detailing, my various complaints and the various flaws in it. And both my parents said, "You didn't spend enough time on these things." Like I just to shorten it to
So you
over an hour.
Did this video come out? Sorry, did this our video come out?
No, I never
Okay.
posted it. I never posted it, and the video that I did end up posting, which is on the Farewell and a Monster Calls, is something that I hammered together in a week, and I finally had it ready on the 26th.
Wow!
And then I put it out. Yeah, well,
no, that's
it's not my best video.
No, I totally I think so. Like this goes to another question then. Like, have you ever had a video you were making and then just like you obviously have with that one? Has there ever been others that had happened with that, where like you were gonna make it and like you were maybe like into it a little bit and then like it just dropped off project wise?
There hasn't been a video that I have dropped off after I have written the script for it. Thus far, there have been some ideas that I've put aside because I either find a video that I think, like, for instance, I wanted to do something about Falun Gong, the Shenyun, and how it deliberately exploits white people's ignorance of quote unquote traditional Chinese things to get their money and whatnot.
Like fortune cookies and feng shui.
Kind of. The Shenyun it's like quote unquote traditional Chinese dancing, but it's not actually that traditional because there's so many different dance styles throughout all of China and whatnot.
Yeah.
But then a YouTuber called JG McCullough made 2 Falun Gong movies, and they were both just so amazing. And I remember thinking, I am never going to be able to make a Falun Gong video as good as that. So I dropped that idea. Or like in the case of the Asian Saga, I didn't state my cases well enough, well cited enough, well researched enough, and so I really do want to go back and make a video analysis about all 6 of the Asian Saga books and how they relate to James Clavell's life, and how they are influential in popular media and whatnot. But that's something that I'm putting aside until I get better at video making.
Oh, 100%. I 100% understand that.
I think I could make a King Rat video, at least. But even then, right now, I'm having to think about my YouTube channel. Because the thing is, I do enjoy making YouTube videos. But the reason the ultimate underlying spark that started it all is that
You needed a presence,
to
right?
sell my book,
Yeah.
I needed an internet presence. And the fact is, looking back on it now, it's obvious, of course you're not going to get a major internet presence after just 6 months of YouTube making. But because of the virus, I kind of have to have some sort of internet presence. And something that I've realized, Demolition D, he's another YouTuber that I quite like. He also wrote something, but I was never tempted when watching any of his videos to check out his writing, because making videos and writing fiction are two different skill sets. And so I'm starting to wonder, maybe I should divest my energies into some fiction writing, like maybe fan fiction or Archive of Our Own, something like that. I'm having to think about it, because the problem is that YouTube video making is not my only hobby project thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my only project that I work on after I get back from my day job, well, night job technically, but writing is that.
Right.
And my first loyalty is ultimately to my writing.
Mm-hmm.
And video making is ultimately a second loyalty. So I definitely want to keep the channel active,
Mm-hmm.
because I do have plans. I do have videos that I really, really want to make, but I'm having to.
It's about balance, isn't it?
Yeah. And so I'm looking into other what's the word, platforms right now. And so that's why this month's video isn't going to be an analysis video, but something else. But the thing is, I am going to post a video on the 26th of every month.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just a shit post, I'm still going to post at least some video. Even if it's a shit post, even if it has nothing to do with my stated themes, I'm going to keep it active. I just may not be focusing on it until I have gotten enough publicity for my book.
No, that's
basically.
very reasonable. That's understandable. Like it sounds like you have your priorities pretty straightened out. From like your goal is your book, and I think that's very important. And I think that's why the first part of this interview was more just us talking about your book, and then the second part ended up us being kind of like combination of like shit posting and also talking about like our channels, because it's very important to you, and like this, again, I don't think I could ever be a published author, and like I'm never going to try, because it's not something I'm passionate about. You are very passionate about this, and any way possible, like to make that happen for you is something, because like I thoroughly liked reading your book, and I want another one. It's like that's just how it is. It's just,
I want another one too. I want another one too. I want to be able to.
I assume you want another
Actually,
one.
The next one actually, I mean, it's not, or well, actually, oh, that's another thing. Yeah, the first book does mention Urduha. That's another Filipina heroine.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. But the next one is actually in the Southeast Asian islands.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's only very briefly. It's like a little flashback, but I'm hoping that's
very cool. So what? There's a goal you have to get to, correct? Is that how like getting a sequel works? I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand. Like, I've never written a book, obviously.
Okay. So right now, I need to sell at least 200 copies of the book. That can be 200 ebook copies, 200 physical book copies, 200 combination. I need to sell at least 200 for them to publish the second book. These past 2 months, I have sold 35 units, 35 books, which isn't bad. It's not bad, but I've got to keep that energy
Consistency.
going.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's what I'm using this month to wonder about. Um, and yeah.
It seems stressful. Like I don't envy you. It seems like not this isn't me trying to be like a negative Nancy. It's just it from the point of view that I'm seeing, it seems like it like I can't I could only imagine what it's like cuz publishing a book seems like one of the most like rawest things you could do because you're literally putting yourself out there because this is like a this is, you know what I mean. It's very just like that 200 books is super important, so like yeah, I can totally understand why you're feeling like that. And like that it sucks because like I really like your book, and I've brought it up to people and things like that because I'm like, this is actually a really good book, and like I think people should read it, and that's why like I wanted to talk to you about it because like it's probably like it's not gonna be like super big. Wow, this we're talking about it, but like I wanted to hear how this all came about, and like it's a fascinating book. Uh, how you explained your book throughout this thing, super fascinating. The bibliography thing, A1, one of the it's a unique take, and I think that's really really good. And if 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 anything comes to it, maybe you get like another book sale. Like that's all I'm hoping with this interview, because like
Yeah.
I really this isn't
Just,
me
yeah.
being like it's me being very genuine and serious. Like I think you're a creative person, and like I there's a like you know what I mean. Your first chapter is out on the internet, right? Or was it the prologue?
Yes. Yes. The very first chapter is available for free to read on the internet. I can send you the link to it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I'm honestly amazed by your work ethic because you're putting out videos like every week, which is something that I simply could never do.
It's bi-weekly. I like I
Oh,
think
bi-weekly.
I've said this before. Like the reason why some things came out a week is like I started writing video essays before I even thought I was going to even do it, just because like in my mind mentally I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I need to be prepared. And so like my work ethic my work ethic's so bizarre because like it comes in flashes. So like that's why I always have something going on, is because like I the re like you were talking about like it's the 26th, even if it's a shit post. Like last week's video was definitely to me my shit post, which is really fucking weird because it's the longest video I've done. So I was like, this is my shit post video. It's the longest video I've ever done, but it's my shit post video because I'm working on a Scott Pilgrim video essay that's mentally just draining me in a good way comparatively, cuz like no, like my thank you for saying that I have really good work ethic, cuz I think my work ethic is shit because I'm just like, oh no. I'm always so nervous. Like I like just posting it after it's posted. Like I don't know what I told you this because it's just kind of like my fear of it is just like either a it's gonna come off like really really like really really pretentiousy or like that's always been my fear of like
Uh,
my food like that Food Wars video really was like one of the weirdest experiences in my life because like it was like, yeah, we really like Food Wars, we support it, and it's like, oh, that's weird. And then my Mortal Kombat video came out and people were like, you're wrong. I was like, all right, this is how I feel now.
it's combat time.
Yeah, no, that's always
Combat time, baby.
I think that always gets me. I think that like uh, because like like when I write I feel like it's I feel like I have really bad opinions on things, and that's how I always explain to people how my videos. When like someone asks me, they're like, "So what do you write about?" I was like, "I have really bad opinions on media most of the time," and so like here they are, because I wrote except for the
Yeah,
last
own
Airbender,
that.
because
It's like
everyone really fucking
I'm a
hates
I'm a
that movie.
professional bad opinion
Yeah,
dude.
I made
Yeah,
that like the last Airbender one was like a combination of the most
for a
I don't
bad
know.
opinion, badass.
It was so mentally draining. I don't know if you've ever had like you probably had did you have that when you were writing your novel that it was like kind of mentally draining sometimes, or were you
Training was when I was writing the Clavel um excuse me, the Clavel video,
okay?
because it just I mean, he started out writing screenplays, and so
Okay.
because of this, his books are dialogue focused, but they just go on and on and on and on, and it's hundreds and hundreds of pages of just people sitting in rooms talking. And
Oh, that sounds
I'm
awful.
like, why? Yeah, so
That's really awful. No,
yeah.
like for me like that last Airbender video was like mentally draining because like I already knew I wasn't gonna like it. You know what I mean? And I think that like that video made me realize like if I'm gonna write about something, I'm gonna write about stuff I like. I don't want to write about things I hate because it's so like. But if it's something I hate that I
Uh,
love, it's totally different. Because like when you watch John Shenmue 3 video, he comes at it with love. It's not just like scathing this. And it's so just like
I
it's
know
it's so hard to watch because it's like it's not that it's bad, it's just that like
it's betrayed love.
the man had dreams of like grandeur and it's just toppling down. So like with the last Airbender video, I realized it because like I put so much effort into it and then like I shouldn't read Reddit comments, but I ended up reading Reddit comments, and a lot of them was like, "Well, there's no movie embossing say," and all this kind of crap. And so, like, all of that, like, with that kind of like, it was just kind of just like, "Yep, never gonna write about anything that I hate ever again because this is like, this. I don't want this stress, and this is like really unneeded stress for like." For something that like is bad, and it was just kind of like the combination of just like hearing M. Night Shyamalan explain like why his whitewashing was okay, just everything just like landing one on one throughout that video came to me being like I can't write about things that like I was like I can't write about like if I genuinely hate something I can never write about it because it's so aggressively bad. And it just puts me in a bad mind state where I'm like, no more, no more, no more. And I also just feel like
I will
I.
say,
Sorry, go on.
I will say for any Clavel fans who are angrily typing a comment that King Rat is one of my favorite books of all time. It's really wonderful. And the Noble House miniseries is amazing. It's amazing. I love it. Really love it.
I'm
It's
gonna.
basically what Crazy Rich Asians would have been if it had been made in the 80s. The
You're
Noble
saying
House
all these weird,
miniseries.
nice, these different books that I'm going to end up finding, and like, thank you because like, again, I love when people just are like, you should read this book, and I'm like, I should, except if it's a Brandon Sanderson novel. I live in Utah, so it's very LDS, and so there's a lot of Mormons, and there's this famous
Uh,
fantasy writer called Brandon
uh,
Sanderson. I read his book. I read one, and it's just like it's not good, but like they swear up and down it's the best fantasy book series ever. And like so, if I ever have a conversation with anyone here about books, they're like, "You should read Brandon Sanderson," and I'm like, "Okay," and like I'll just say yes and just never read it. And I feel bad, but it's just when like there's a
I don't know if
prolific
Brandon
author.
Sanderson is, if as a fantasy author myself, if Brandon, if you're watching this, and fans, feel free to DM Brandon to let him
Sanderson.
know this, but just Brandon,
Brandon
Brandon, my
Sanderson.
boy, if you're watching this, I haven't actually read anything by you. Um, I just every time I've heard about one of your books, I've it's always been one of those things that makes me think, oh, that sounds okay.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what
yeah.
it sounds like. Thank you. Okay, because like when they say it, they make it sound like it's like the best book ever. And then I read one. I'm like, it's fine. It's not like to me. It was like, I feel like I was oversold on this. I was expecting George R. R. Martin, and I got Del Toro's Quest. Thank you very much.
I have never read a single George R. R. Martin book. I've seen bits of the show.
They're aggressively
Um,
long, and it
most of
you know my feeling about Tolkien. You know my feeling about Tolkien's writing. It's got that
oh,
same kind of feeling of like a lot of descriptions that are unneeded.
I adored the radio adaptation of The Lord of the Rings. Brandon, back to you, Brandon. Okay, so Brandon, you are living your best life. You are making a living doing what you love, and that
Oh
is
yeah,
honestly the dream.
yeah. He's very
So
he's
shout outs to
successful.
you.
I
Yeah, I
yeah.
hope
That's the thing. He's successful. I'm not. I'm a shitty YouTuber. So like, my opinions
okay.
mean nothing.
So, just keep on keeping on, Brandon. I don't know what your personal life is, but so if you've been secretly robbing orphanages or something that'll get you canceled in the future, then I'll retract this. But for now, you're an okay dude. Keep on being an okay dude, living your best life, and hit us up on Twitter. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for this interview, Marco, and thank you for this conversation. This has been really
Sure.
fun. I don't know if you thought it was. I feel bad actually. You dressed up. I'm wearing a shitty tank top, and I'm like, because like when before we started, I'm like, maybe I should wear a polo, and then I'm just like, I mean,
Uh,
like it's the quarantine, and then like you're looking really nice and fresh, and I'm like, man, I feel awful now.
kind To be perfectly honest, I just wanted to prove that I really do have pink clothing
I
in
really
my
like it.
wardrobe
It's very
because
nice.
because I always draw myself wearing pink and black, and I'm wearing pink and black now
You do, yeah.
because I like that color combination.
But really, no,
Yeah.
thank you
So
for having for being on. It was very nice. I still don't have a title for this. It's gonna be talking with interesting people with not Keith. But check out.
oh, you should do it like firing line,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, no, most
Because
definitely.
I yeah, okay.
No,
Well,
I like that.
thank you for having me on here. This was a fun conversation. The internet kind of got buggy sometimes, but hopefully everyone who's watching the video now will be able to hear both of us clearly.
I'm super sorry if that
And
happened.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
oh
I
no, it's
think
fine.
that's super awesome. That's very awesome. Check out Marco's books in the link down below. It's called what's it called again, Marco?
Song of Morian, Mercy and Monsters.
Yeah.
It's called The Song of Morian, Mercy and Monsters. Story about stories, a fantasy about fantasies, and why it is that we tell and retell stories and what they mean to us. It's Discworld by Dunsany. So if you like Discworld and you like Lord Dunsany, or even if you're just into myths and fantasies in general, then check it out. It's really awesome. And you are beautiful people, unless you've been secretly bombing orphanages or something. So
Yeah. It
yeah.
was yeah, links down below for his book and his YouTube channel. Expect a shit post apparently on the 26th. So, have a good one,
And
guys.
Kian is also a beautiful man.
Thank you.